love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm so excited to listen to the rest of the episode.
For your new YouTube videos, keep doing what you're doing.
Also, your voice is so relaxing.
Great topics, amazing delivery.
You are an inspiration always.
Thank you for putting your gifts
Never stop.
into the world.
I'm here to give you the keys, not just to survive, but to thrive. Grab your pens, grab your notebooks. Let's go. All right, guys, you know where you're at. Welcome back to Wisdom Wednesdays, and welcome to my humble abode. I like to know somebody a little longer before I let them into my home. Here I am. Now, I'm doing this episode independently. It's a taboo topic. Toxic femininity. Nobody wanted to talk about it. I'll do it. So, I'm excited because right now there's a lot of conversations happening about just toxic masculinity and Andrew Tate and crazy stuff like that just going on in the world. We talked about toxic masculinity. Great guest, not afraid to talk about it. And when I'm searching for some souls to sacrifice on the topic of toxic femininity, I can't seem to dredge anybody up. So I am super excited to be the person to rip off the Band-Aid and talk about it. Let's see, something a little bit fun that I thought I could do was give you guys the answers to the interview questions that I ask other people. So, first and foremost, who am I? I'm obviously Keyosha. I'm a life coach. I'm an actress. And I'm multi-talented like most Caribbean and Jamaican people are. That's my background. My favorite number is 3, which a lot of people already know. And my zodiac sign is Aries. Shoe size 7, 8, depending on the time of day. And I am most proud of the fact that I face my fears and start new things. So even when I'm scared, I still jump into it and give it my all. And I usually love how the outcome is. So let's get right into it. Toxic femininity, y'all. Defining femininity, it's basically qualities or attributes regarded as characteristics of specifically women. Now, when it becomes toxic is its behavior that reflects or supports gender-based stereotypes or social constructs for women. The world right now is like silencing people's social medias, and there's a huge thing called cancel culture. And as soon as you think about cancel culture, the last thing that you want to do is get canceled for speaking your mind. But I think that also is a downfall, and we'll get into why later on. Now that we understand what femininity is and when it becomes toxic, we can go ahead and touch on something I like to call feminism or Western womanism. Now, the thing is feminism originated from a lady in Ireland. There's actually a really cool book that talks about it. I've read it to my daughter, the kid's book about feminism. She introduces herself as a corporate woman who is from Ireland and obviously kind of like a European descent. Talks a lot about how equality is important and giving people equal chances, which is something that I obviously agree with. But feminism and equality of sexes, freedom from oppression, and gender equality are where feminism originated. Now, where feminism is going is a little bit difficult because there's a lot of things tying in right now. First and foremost, having this really huge, thick wall up about the fact that men shouldn't be able to speak on anything regarding women. Now, obviously, when it comes to consensual things with women's bodies, that's a different topic. But actually talking about defending and the well-being of women, I think is a discussion that we can have openly without canceling people and without chastising people. The reason why is because there are men who are, sons, brothers of sisters, fathers of daughters, and husbands of wives. So just completely negating that a man might have the best interest of women at heart is a wrong direction to go in. Now, knowing where feminism originated, and the reason why I consider feminism a Western concept is because during the time that feminism originated, housewives were fighting to become a part of the working world. They were fighting to become a part of what they felt would help to make their families have more freedom financially and to be able to have more footing within the world, whether it came to their finances, getting mortgages, and being able to vote. But also, one thing that we don't actually realize is feminism is very Western because in the Western world, it was housewives that wanted to fight for equality. But for Black females, the concept of being able to fight to be able to have the freedom to work for a Black female is pretty much irrelevant because Black women were being colonized. So where Western women are fighting for equality, Black women are actually fighting for their lives. And just having those two different origins, I can already see where it's difficult for all women to be on the same page when they're fighting for what the difference is between toxic femininity and feminism and equality, because the desires are not the same. I can understand also why Black women would want to have the serenity of the concept that was already granted to the Western white women who were fighting for equality to work, vote, and have their own bank accounts. Because wanting to be able to have something that should be normal, like your own home, being able to be paid for work as opposed to enslaved, as well as being able to be home with your family as opposed to missing out on their childhoods, watching them grow, and being connected and integrated with your husband and allowing your husband to be home and be a part of the family and connect with each and every member and creating that wholesome home environment. That's not something that was granted just organically to Black women. That's exactly why we're fighting for different things sometimes. We actually are multifaceted and quite diverse in what we desire for our futures and for our females that surround us, whether it be sisters, friends, any family members, or people that we are in professional settings with. We as Black women are wanting different things that as opposed to just the equality to work. We've been out here in these streets doing our thing, making money or hustling quite literally for free as mammies, wet nurses, and you name it. So when it comes to just trying to say, I want the right to vote, have a bank account, or be able to work, it's not necessarily resonating to women during that time. Now, it's hard because this isn't something that people like to bring up or talk about. We're faced with something that is a real pivotal point right now. Why? Because we have different people speaking up on what it means to be a woman. And because we come from such different origins and we're fighting for different things, we are required to come to some kind of common ground. And without having an understanding of where either aspect is coming from, there's absolutely no way we can arrive at a common ground. When one person is fighting for equality and the other person is using the fight, flight, or freeze version of their brain to fight for their lives, saying things like, not wanting to be a housewife isn't always something that can be agreed upon for a lot of people that I know that have desired to break cycles of segregation and broken lineage and actually be home and raise their children and be a safe space for themselves, their children, or their husband or spouse or partner or whatever their relationship denomination is. To be honest, it's something that I have seen appeal to a lot of people with my cultural background. The reason why is because it's something that we weren't ever granted. And that's exactly why it's something that we would fight for. Having the freedom to be in a position to actually be in a state of relaxation and be present with your family, or even with your parents. I know that children who have come from homes where single moms are raising them, they don't always feel like they've gotten that chance to be connected with their parents and be able to learn from them the things that are real, concrete, essential tools for raising their own children. And so as opposed to wanting to go out into the world and feel like you actually don't have the tools that you need to be the best that you can be in all of these different areas that come up when you move from childhood or adolescence into adulthood, you're ending up feeling like you're lost. And this is where a lot of midlife crises come in. It's really unhealthy to kind of like be that kind of woman who doesn't resonate with wanting to be a part of community or even society or be a part of the whole that is the population that populates this planet. When you lack wanting to be a part of that population, you then lack the ability to kind of aid the population in making forward motion. And you can have that hustle culture, and it's not a bad thing for you to do that in moderation. Obviously, we want to have a setting where children can flourish and where their needs can be met. And that is exactly why this idea of working and never stopping working until you're in a perfect position to have children is so prevalent right now. Now, on the flip side of the coin, there are women who are working past the point of being able to have kids. Their clock is running out. There's also women who quite literally they don't even want to have children. And so the reason why that is a difficult thing from the perspective of male or people who identify as male wanting to see where they meet eye to eye is because we're taught different things about legacy. Legacy is obviously, what you build and what you leave behind, but also your children are your legacy. And so a lot of times men who want to have children don't feel like they connect with women who don't want to have children or just want to chase the dollar, because their legacy begins and ends with them. And so that concept that is everywhere in religion and in the Bible and everything like that of eternal life, moreover, is solidified through procreation. Now, I'm not saying you're a woman, you gotta have kids. You're a dude, you gotta have kids. That's not at all where I stand. But I do, however, want to shed light on the fact into the nooks and crannies of the conceptualized mentality that we are to hustle and acquire materialistic things, be, grand on simply social media and social platforms, only, living an extravagant, luxurious lifestyle, never to procreate, never to leave behind a legacy, only items acquired or obtained over time. The reason why this is not beneficial is because it stunts our growth as a people. It stunts our growth within ourselves. And I am living proof of that. A perfect example is the fact that I thought, as a mother-to-be, while my daughter grew within my belly, of all of these really fun future ideas of concepts and moralities and things that I would teach to my daughter. Now, the crazy thing that I never realized would happen is I would be the person who would be taught quite a bit by my daughter's presence and persistence in my lifestyle. So I naturally grow as a person as a result of having a child that has that innocence that children do have, that fun desire to learn and live that children do have, that re-spark that in adults around them. Now, I know what you're saying. Nieces, nephews, younger cousins, other people, friends, children are all areas where you can be around those childlike mentalities. But I will say there is nothing like looking at yourself in the mirror and affirming a lot of things that you want to be good and true and grow within you. The same concept is true when it comes to your children, because of the fact that you're looking into a mirror, but think of it as time traveling, where you actually get a chance to look at yourself as a child, see yourself in your child, and grow parts of yourself that may or may not have been stunted, traumatized, or experienced detriment in your childhood. And so when you're trying to heal your inner child, and these are all just ages and stages of life, children can aid you in that. And they can actually lift you and really moisten your soil to be able to give you the strength and nourishment that you need to grow as a person. So I feel like we're moving in a pretty terrifying direction. I can understand why social media and the internet has its benefits, but I also see some pretty terrifying flaws in just glorifying materialistic things over our lives and what adds value to them. Being able to have those connections with family members, friends, peers, acquaintances, our children. These are all real things that add value to our life. And that's the reason why people aren't put on this planet alone. We're placed here with a lot of other people that we can connect with, cross paths with, some permanent, some temporary. Nevertheless, all connections are mandatory for us to be able to connect with ourselves and see ourselves in others. So I want to personalize the definition of toxic femininity in a way of just those social norms for women and the fact that they're kind of changing into a very toxic direction where we're told that we don't have much value if we are single parents, or if we have a divorce, or if we don't have financially much to bring to the table. However, just like a $20 bill doesn't lose value by being crumpled nor spat on or thrown on a stripper. I mean, $20 is still $20. And that's where I want to reinforce the fact and empower the fact that women still have value, even if the only thing that they are chasing isn't materialistic. Now, the same is said for men. I've noticed that a lot of people talk about things like alpha male and the fact that if the man isn't making a certain amount of money, they don't actually have value. But because we all come from different walks of life, there are certain things that can impact us. Say, for example, my goal is to live in the UK. I want to open up a hospital or a practice there. I might have to study first in my home country, which is Canada, and then apply for certain avenues to open up for me to be able to set up new roots in a new country, such as somewhere in the UK. Is that something that is time consuming, especially if I want to be in the medical field? Yes. Is that something that might set me back financially, but really speaks to my dreams, life calling, and my career? Yes. And so when a woman is looking at me, if I were a man, telling me that I lack value because I don't have a mansion or multiple fancy cars, and I'm driven, I'm goal oriented, I'm not asking to have children prematurely, but I do want to connect with somebody and hopefully meet my soulmate or what have you. I think that when we're getting a little bit lost in the mix is when we're just cutting people off at the knees based on where they stand financially. Now, I'm not saying this because I'm coming from a place where I'm personally impoverished. I've worked and I've done what I can to acquire what I need to make sure that my needs and my offspring's needs are met. Because ultimately, like I mentioned, you may end up with a dependent. Now, that dependent could be your children. That dependent could also be people who are your elders that end up needing your aid financially for them to be in a care home. Or you might personally take on the responsibility of caring for them yourself. All of that in respect. Feminism is getting scary because it is becoming radical. I listened to a TED Talk by Alma Akob recently talking about the fact that she truly did resonate with the idea of being a feminist, initially a radical feminist, but as time moved on, she realized that she wanted to stay true to the aspects of equality, of sexes, freedom from oppression, and gender equality. And she realized that she wanted to liberate people and that she would consider herself more of a liberal feminist. But also, as time moves on, she realizes that herself as a woman of color doesn't always have the same ideas in mind of what we're fighting for, dependent on moment by moment. And that's what caused her to feel like she was an intersectional feminist. But this is a journey that actually resonates with so many people. When you think about what feminism is and it's explained to you in its most generic way, you of course want equality. You want freedom from oppression. You want gender equality. You want people to be able to work if they want to work, be home if they want to be home, maternity leave, paternity leave, the presence of, the most important thing, our families, our connections, our loves of our lives, right? Now, the reason why feminism is dangerous for Black women is because it's sweeping under the rug the majority of the things that would make a Black woman be considered equal. And so when we're fighting for certain things, like, for example, our hair to be able to be worn naturally in a professional setting, because that's just how it grows out of our head, or if we're fighting for the ability to be paid equally to a cis white gendered male, for example, we end up at a crossroads because these things are really important, but voices tend to be silenced, or it requires so many more numbers for the voices to even be heard, considered, and a change to happen. So the very last piece of what Elma Abbock mentioned that I felt really reigns true is womanism. The reason why is because she spoke of a concept of how she was raised. She was exposed to her father seeing and speaking highly of her mother, valuing her mother, and valuing what her mom brought to the table, so to speak. Just today's jargon. And we're really at a point where we can't be playing around anymore with our ideas of what unity is, because it's so messy. We're silencing people on social media, canceling people, and not realizing that these are all teaching opportunities. As soon as you're canceling somebody, you're not giving them the opportunity to learn. You're not teaching them the same way that we would usually teach somebody who has areas to improve, including ourselves. And so if we're not willing to extend the same grace to others as we would ourselves when it comes to radical feminism or toxic masculinity or any of these really challenging topics that are happening right now, then we all lose. As a human race, we lose. And I doubt that that is the desire of any of us. So that being said, I feel like the fact that women don't want to talk on the topic of toxic femininity in the first place is a really big sign that we've got to make some changes, because toxic femininity is just as relevant as toxic masculinity. Both are hindering us as a human race. It doesn't matter if I achieve my dreams as soon as I'm in the UK and I match everything that I want to do and I'm literally living the life that I want to in luxury, and every girl or guy that looks my direction is interested because I'm an alpha male or female. It doesn't matter. What really matters is the connections that we make with people, because no one's ever been sitting on their deathbed being like, I wish I had more money and cars and homes. Usually when they're nearly dying, they wish they had more time with their family, whether it be their chosen family, the people that they love. So again, we got to stop playing. Like, this is crazy at this point. Yes, Andrew Tate said so many outrageous things. Some of the things that he was caught for, physical violence, things like that, none of these things are okay. One thing that I know is true is being someone who survived domestic violence. In the first times that I had attempted to leave, one thing that I can say I noticed was slim to none, was the resources available for men who struggle with anger management, being violent, you name it. And so we're coming to a point where we're talking on all of these things about these men who need to be better and do better and so on. Yet, just like in the mental health episode, we talked about the fact that mental health, having a therapist or being able to work on it, isn't actually affordable. Being able to take that time off of work and attend to your inner child and heal your trauma is time consuming. It means that you're not profiting at the time, and a therapist is excessively expensive. These resources that would be just available to anybody if they were ready to receive them. But then resources for men who are struggling with being violent or anger management not being accessible or being expensive is the world that we live in today. So if we're all aware and we can all agree that there is a lack of accessibility and that there is a lack of resources, it's time that we see eye to eye on the fact that it's not just black and white or cut and dry. We are all in our own struggle. We are all in this world doing our own thing. And we're all trying to make the best decisions possible in the moment. So if we're not doing that, the same way that I would teach a child is the same way that you would at least attempt to teach an adult. The brain is always constantly growing. It doesn't stop having its brain cells moving at a rapid pace for the rest of our lives. So why do we tell ourselves that men can't grow at a certain age? Now, I'm not trying to perpetuate toxicity. I don't think that toxic relationships are something that anybody should stay within, especially if it's not healthy, toxic. I think that we should start having more conversations with men where we actually suggest to them some things that might help them. From there, it's their job to do the work, right? But it is toxic femininity to see someone who needs help, needs to grow, needs to better themselves, and then decide to just leave that member of the pack injured to die. Because that's just not how we operate. That's the whole reason why there's a medical field. It's the whole reason why we put our heads together, scientifically speaking, to come up with solutions that can save people's lives. More lives are saved these days with the medical advances that we've made as opposed to, without it, prior to it. So if we know that we're all trying to be here equally and enjoy this experience called life, then we can't just write off or cancel certain people who clearly have some things to learn. Now, you now know what toxic femininity is. You now know how it ties into our day-to-day lives. You could benefit from taking a pen and a paper and doing the homework, whether or not you are a male or a female. What are some ways that I can improve if I am someone who identifies as female? What are some ways that I could be less judgmental and more eager to see the betterment of the greater good? What are some of my pet peeves, things that just irritate me to no end, that I'm not willing to put up with, no matter who it is? What are my boundaries? Because when you learn those things about yourself, you learn a lot about how you work in this world and how you connect with other people. So there's that for homework for the women, and for the men, taking that pen and paper as well. Write down areas where you feel like women around you may have disappointed you, whether or not it's lacking to listen, lacking to empathize when you're in a state of vulnerability, or lacking to want to help. Because again, we're really not placed on this planet alone. This population is here as a group, and if we can't put our heads together and work as a team, then we're not going to be getting anywhere very quickly. Any business owner or entrepreneur can tell you that if they try to take on an entire business by themselves and wear every single hat, they will get business burnout and be destined to fail. So even when we're speaking in the success of simply numbers, it's going to take more than just one to get where we're trying to go. Just like my first episode, you know what I'm about. I don't ever recommend that we sever ties with one gender or another, the hatred of men or the hatred of women, to try to get clout or get anything. Because everyone is here, and we are all here meant to make it through this mutually beneficially and as a team. So yeah, I urge y'all to do the homework, man. Comment below if you did the homework. like, subscribe, and follow me on any platform at Keyosha333. That includes TikTok. I got some funny stuff up there. Facebook, Instagram. We love it. We love doing this. We love connecting. And I'm so happy that y'all seen it through all the way, 17 episodes. We're in a good place. I welcome you into my home. Happy to have you here. And thanks for joining me today. Bye.